with a cracker.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the United Star. Today we have Shivan here again with us and we're going to do an FPL video, guys. The prices are out. The players have obviously, there have been some transfers. The new players have been listed and the season is back. This is probably the quickest turnover in terms of FPL for managers from the old season to the new one. And obviously we're very excited and some very interesting changes in positions, changes in prices. So we're just going to draw your attention to that and things that you should watch out for. Maybe a few players that you should sort of definitely have in your team. So let's get straight on with it. Shivan, with goalkeepers, have you seen any interesting changes, any interesting movements?
No, goalkeepers normally the same. All your big goalkeepers, the big teams. So Allison and Edison are both 6 million. The interesting change is Nick Pope. He's 5.5 million. He was 5 last year. So he's the most point scoring keeper last year with 170 points. So he's going to be quite expensive. And you have other nice cheap options. You have Ryan, who's 4.5. You have Martinez, who's 4.5 from Arsenal. If he starts, that's a good option you have. There's Heaton, who's 4.5. And then in the 5 million bracket, we have some nice keepers like Leno, Dubravka, and all that. So there's some nice keeper options. For me, I like to go cheap with my keeper. So I'll most likely get a 5 million keeper or 4.5 million keeper. So that's either Ryan or Leno, and I'll go for second option will be a 4 million keeper. So it depends on the fixture, but there's some good options we have right now.
Right. Also, at 5.5, there is a good set of keepers in terms of Patricio, Lloris, Kasper Schmeichel, and David De Gea. All these keepers are at 5.5. So maybe you can go in with a strategy of one 5.5 and one 4.5 goalkeeper and then go from there. Another 4.5 goalkeeper that you didn't mention maybe was McCarthy from Southampton, who I think is going to be a good option again. And one player that you should watch out for who's not been listed yet is Aaron Ramsdale. His transfer has been confirmed to Sheffield United. And I think he would make a big difference there because Dean Henderson has moved on and someone has to occupy that space. And as we've seen, Sheffield are a more defensive team than most teams. So I think Aaron Ramsdale is a good bet. And even though Nick Pope is 5.5, I don't think a lot of managers should be deterred by that if you're going for a 5.5, 4.5 option, because Burnley will keep a lot of clean sheets again. And Pope has been consistent, not just last season, but even the season before that, he was pretty consistent as well. So I think with goalkeepers, that is the sort of options. With defenders, let me just break it to all the managers there. Very disappointing news. Last year's FPL hero and man of the moment, Lundstrom, is no more a defender. He has moved into the midfield positions. So it's a very sad day for FPL managers. So you cannot pick him and cannot take 6 points for every goal he scores and clean sheet points. But there are some interesting options in defense. Shivam, take it away.
Yeah, so as always, the FPL god in terms of defenders, Trent Alexander-Arnold is the most expensive one, and that's expected. He's 7.5 million. He could have actually been even 8 million. That's how good he was last season, but you get goals, assists, clean sheets, everything from him. So he's the most expensive defender. You have Robertson who's 7, you have Van Dijk who's 6.5. I think most people will go for Trent because of his potential in terms of point scoring and his explosiveness. And other options, in terms of cheap options, we don't have the FPL god in terms of Lundstrom, but there's some nice cheap options. So you have Ruben Vinagre, who's from Wolves. So we know Johnny's out injured with an ACL injury. So Vinagre will start on the left-hand side, left wing back. And if we know that Wolves are really good defensively, and if he can get some attacking points as well, it's a good 4.5 option. Then you've got lots of 5 to 4.5 options. You have the Brighton defense. You have like Tarek Lamptey. You have a couple of Burnley options, which is like Bardsley, Peters. Those are your nice 4.5 options. And in terms of a cheaper option, you can look at someone like Branthwaite from Everton, who's 4 million, or this guy called Ferguson from Crystal Palace, who might start at right back. So that's someone we should look at. Right. But in terms of strategy, from a defensive point of view, I like to have one big hitter and the rest cheap options, so I can save my money for going forward. So look at maybe 3 4.5 midfielders, defenders, one really expensive one, and maybe one 4 million defender. That's how I look at it. What about you?
Right. I completely agree with you. I think obviously Arnold, Dorothy are important players. I'm actually going to pick Lamptey for sure. I think he had a great season last year. The last season was brilliant for him. And going forward, he's a great asset. And I think he has a lot to provide in that position. I'm also looking at Kieran Tierney from Arsenal. I think for 5.5, his forward ability and the way Arteta is setting up, I think he will bring a lot of points. I quite like Kieran Tierney in that left wing back kind of position. The other assets, of course, Sheffield United assets have increased in price, all of them. They are either now 5.5, which is Stevens and Baldock, and the other defenders in Basham and those likes are 5. And Manchester United assets have not moved. You've got Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka at 5.5 and Luke Shaw at 5. So maybe that is also something you can consider and pick, because United have looked good at the back this season, third least conceded goals after the top two sides. So that's another option. Joe Gomez from Liverpool might be a good option at 5.5. I think Klopp is showing faith in him, and he might start
Yes,
more games
he'll
than
definitely start. Yeah.
yeah. So that is why I think he might be a good option, and his price is also not increased that much. It's just 5.5 compared to the other Liverpool back fours. So I think that's about it in terms of defense. Burnley defenders again, Tarkowski is there, Bardsley is there, Peters is there. Tarkowski is 5.5, Bardsley and Peters are 4.5 each. So I think those are good options as well in the 4.5 category. Let's move on to what I've really been wanting to discuss all this while, the midfield. There
Yeah.
are so many changes here, especially in terms of people who've moved into the midfield. Of course, Lundstrom is there, but Lundstrom is not the biggest fish that is there. I think the biggest change is Aubameyang coming into the midfield. With the sheer number of goals he scores, does he become almost a certainty to go into the midfield, you think?
Yeah, so we have so many midfield options. We can have 6 and 7 midfield options, and like we need more places. So as a stat that if Aubameyang played in was a midfielder last in FPL, he'd be the second highest point scorer after De Bruyne. So his position change to midfield really changes things, because he gets 1 more point for a goal and 1 point for a clean sheet as well. So that really makes him a prime asset. He's priced the same as Salah and Mane
At
at the
12.
12 million marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a interesting price. It's 1 million more than when he was a forward, but he's gonna get more points. So I feel like he's not essential yet. We wait for the fixtures, but it's really like Aubameyang becomes a better option in terms of FPL compared to when he was a forward. Now that he's a midfielder, otherwise we have got so many great options in terms of midfield. So you have your two Liverpool assets, Mane or Salah. I think you have to have one of them in your team. You have your two City assets, which is Sterling and De Bruyne. They both are 11.5 million. You have to have one of those in your team.
Well,
Then
Shivan, just to
apart from
interject
those,
here, because there are
yeah,
some price changes, right? Do you think De Bruyne has finally got the price he deserves? And Sterling has actually fallen in price by one. He was 12 and a half
yeah.
last season. So what are your views on that? What should managers make of that?
So De Bruyne was 9.5 million last year, but the reason he was 9.5 million last year because the year before that he was injured for most of the season. So he was massively underpriced last year. He ended last year at 10.6, 10.7, and this year he might be marginally overpriced or probably right on value. He's got 250 points last year. Just remember, he was the highest point scorer in the game. So he has that value. Sterling also, we saw after the restart he had the most number of points, most number of goals. So he has that value. So the fact that FPL have priced them both at the same 11.5 million makes it an interesting option. So managers will have to decide whether to go for the consistent of points of De Bruyne or the explosive 19 points or 15 points you can get from Sterling every week. So that's what you have to consider. Then we can talk about the new Manchester United players who are now midfielders. So there's Rashford's now midfielder. He's 9.5 million, and Greenwood is still 7.5 million, but he's now a
And
midfielder.
also Bruno is now 11.5 as well. So what do you have to make of that?
10.5.
10.5, sorry. And what do you have to make of those three?
So, in my opinion, I think Bruno's a bit overpriced at 10.5. That takes him out of the game for me because I think United had a lot of penalties last year and Bruno relied on those for points. And his expected assists and expected goals weren't that high. So, he's getting points by passing it to Martial and Pogba, who scores screamers. So, it wasn't like he was overperforming, definitely. He was playing great, but he was overperforming in terms of his stats. So, I think he'll regress next year over the course of the season, and that's why I like Rashford and Greenwood more. Rashford will create more big chances because he plays nearer to the goal, and he'll score more goals, I think, than Bruno. And Greenwood also at 7.5 is a great option. So I think most managers will go for Bruno because he's the Manchester United, like he's a focal point now. But I think if you want to be a differential, and that's what I like to be, I'd go for Greenwood or Rashford.
I think, Shivan, I kind of agree with you that Bruno is a little overpriced at this point, because you also can't expect him to keep up the standard that he
That's
did
what.
after
Yeah.
lockdown for consistently so many games. But again, like Kevin De Bruyne and Salah, Bruno definitely is that player. If he explodes, you're going to miss out a lot, because we've seen that he can do it not only at United but also in the past. And Greenwood, I'm not so sure, because if United do get another midfielder, Greenwood might not start that often, but that's for another video. What I'm more interested in talking about is the Chelsea assets, because Pulisic is priced at 8.5, which I feel is a little sort of underpriced. And Ziyech is, I know it's his first season, but priced at only 8. Do you think those become sort of must gets?
Yeah, so you would like to have either one of them. So Pulisic last year, he almost got double figure assists and goals, and he became really the new Eden Hazard at Chelsea. And he played only half a season. Let's remember that. And he just looked amazing. Like in the FA Cup final, after he went off, Chelsea were literally gone. So I think at 8.5, it's a great price. He'll be injured at the start, so you expect his price to go down to 8.4, 8.3 as well. So I think you can really expect Pulisic to be one of the main men in that Chelsea side, and at 8.5 million, I think it's a great option. Ziyech will have to wait. I think Ziyech might not start every game. Like he'll be eased into life in the Premier League, and there's Mason Mount who can play in his position as well. So I'm not sure. Kai Havertz also might come, so you never know. But I'm not sure about Ziyech yet. But definitely he's a great option at 8 million, because at that price, there's a couple of other good options as well. I'd like to say that Nicolas Pepe is only 8 million. He was 9.5 last year. So his price has gone down considerably. If he performs according to his price tag, I know he's probably overpriced in terms of his price tag last year, the 72 million price tag, and made FPL price him at 9.5. But second season, more adapted to the Premier League. If he starts performing how he did at Lille, then 8 million is a great price. Otherwise, there's some nice options, really cheaper than that also. There's Bernardo Silva who's 7.5. I think there's a couple of nice 6.5 million options as well. So those are guys we can consider.
I would also consider Mason Mount. His price has increased to 7, so I don't know if how attractive even Mason Mount is. Some other names that I'd want to throw in is Zaha is also 7 now, which I think
Yeah.
is a fair price for Zaha. Ferran Torres from Manchester City might be a decent differential. I don't know if he'd start often, but he's someone you can maybe have on the bench if you want. But 7 is of course a very high price. One player I'm quite interested in is Giovanni Lo Celso for 7 in Tottenham. I think that's a very fair and cheap price for Lo Celso, because he was playing defensively, but now that they've got Højbjerg, I think Lo Celso will play in his natural position, which is much more attacking. And for 7, I think he's a great differential maybe to get into the team for the start and see what happens with him, because Spurs, I mean, with Mourinho, you don't expect a lot of goals, but I think Lo Celso is that kind of player who can provide the creativity. For 6.5, I see the best option is Diego Jota. I think you cannot look past Diego Jota at 6.5, and a great pick there. I think, again, a little underpriced, I'd say. Alan Saint Maximan for 5.5. We saw what he did
That's
last
great.
season. I
Yeah.
think it's a great option for 5.5. Kevin Proper from Brighton for 5. I think he creates a lot from midfield. So I think these are some of the cheaper options. Some of the
Yeah,
more,
one thing I want to say, Phil Foden is priced at 6.5.
yeah,
And if he takes the David Silva role, if he starts playing more games, we saw after the restart how good he was. He's probably man of the match against Real Madrid as well, playing that false nine position.
mm-hmm.
So if he starts playing the minutes we think he should play, then he can become an X factor for us. And just one last player, uh, Thomas Susek is only 5 million, and we saw he's a new Fellaini for David Moyes. So he's like that presence up front who's going to get headers, who's going to get shots on target, going to get shots on goal, like set pieces for West Ham. So he's a cheap option we can consider to get as an enabler for the other big hitters.
Right. And but what about Mikhail Antonio?
So Antonio is now a forward and he's
Right.
6.5 million. So if he continues to start at for forward, because we know he played last year because Haller was injured. So if he continues to play up front, he's a great option, I think. So he is good. I doubt he'll continue that form, that great form, scoring 4 goals in a game and all that. But he's definitely one to watch out for in the 6.5 million bracket.
Right. Just before we move on to the forwards, just a couple of players I want to mention is Mahrez has remained at 8.5, which is also a very good option considering he will mostly start from the right for City. Additionally, Madison is also 7, which might be another good option. And Adama Traore is also at 6.5, whereas Harvey Barnes has increased a lot and he's moved straight to 7. So I don't think Harvey Barnes is that much of a
No.
enticing option anymore. But I think Adama Traore and Riyad Mahrez yet remain very good differentials and good options. So let's move on to the strikers. We've already spoken about prime Didier Drogba and Mikhail Antonio. But let's move on. Firstly, I want to say Anthony Martial has become a striker now, and he's 9. So that's one of the big changes from the big clubs in terms of who has changed. We've already spoken about the players who've been put to midfield, but Martial has been moved to striker. So are there any ones, Shivan, you're looking out there? Any new players or something?
So I think in terms of strikers, we don't have as many options in terms of midfielders, and there's the premium strikers aren't looking as good as the premium midfielders. Aguero's gone down, Kane's price has gone down, and they're not looking like the option we want to get. We really want to get the midfielders in. So this is a great place to save money. So the players I'm looking at are, firstly, one is Timo Werner from Chelsea. He got 34 goals and 13 assists last season. So he's definitely one of the top strikers in Europe right now. Yeah, he has to adapt to the Premier League, so we have to consider that. But if he starts up front and if he like gets on form, he's someone we should all go for.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you've got your Jimenez at 8.5. Again, I think that's massively underpriced. He's so consistent. I think he got 37 goals and assists in all seasons, in all competitions last season. Danny Ings is 8.5. So I think in terms of forwards, you've got some great budget options. Again, Alexander Mitrovic is back in the Premier League with Fulham. He's 6.5. That's also a good budget option. So Ashley Barnes or Chris Wood from Burnley are also nice options. So we have some nice enablers like in the 5 to 6 million bracket, and we have some good 8.5 million forwards as well.
Yeah, like you said, Aguero and Kane have dropped to 10.5. They have dropped in value a lot, whereas Jamie Vardy has risen to 10. I think Timo Werner is yet an expensive option at 9.5, but is someone who might be that sort of differential player plus, not differential so to speak, but that explosive player that you might need. Firmino is 9.5 and Jesus at 9.5, I think, are
Too
overpriced.
overpriced.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
same with Lacazette. I think at 8.5 he's overpriced. I don't think he deserves to be in the same price bracket as Danny Ings. The Everton strikers might be interesting. Dominic Calvert-Lewin at 7. He's increased 0.5 in price, but if Ancelotti plays the football that we know him to play, then he might be interesting as well. Uh, Arsenal's biggest nemesis, Neil Maupay, is at 6.5. Uh, so these are some of the strikers. I think Jordan Ayew at 6 is a good get. You've already mentioned Mitrovic,
Yeah.
who's also 6.
Yeah.
So these guys are sort of some of the strikers you can look at. And I think the best, like Shivan said, the best thing is to do is, it seems like there are a lot more pricey midfield options compared to striker options. And the premium strikers, which I consider are, in terms of price, are now Kane and Aguero, do tend to get injured also quite often. So they might not be the best picks either. But Shivan, just to round it off, who is the one player from promoted teams that you think is a must-have this season?
One player from promoted team. I'd have to say that has to be Stuart Dallas from Leeds United. I think at 4.5 million, he's a wing back. He's a like attacking fullback. That's someone that everyone should look at. Otherwise, from West Brom, I don't think see many options. Maybe Charlie Austin. He has good Premier League experience, so he's a good striker we can have. And from Fulham, I think Alexander Mitrovic is probably the best option because he has, again, he's proven in the Premier League that he can score. The big thing with promoted teams is that they can't make the step up. So you like players who have had that experience before, and that's who I think we should look at.
Yeah, lest we forget, Charlie Austin was once famously involved in a Golden Boot race. But so yeah, I agree. I think I was going to go for Mitrovic, but you've already said I think Mitrovic is a must-have option. He's that proper lump it forward number 9 hold-up player. But finally, which
Perfect.
is the one player that you will avoid at all costs? Just one player.
One player avoid at all costs, definitely Roberto Firmino. 9.5 million seems like the most expensive option for someone who hasn't scored who scored one Premier League goal at home last season. That's like crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think I will have to agree and say Roberto Firmino as well. So there you have it, guys. A lot of changes in players, a lot of changes in prices. Going to be a very exciting season, especially in terms of midfield. It's anyone's bet who's going to get the most points. Kevin De Bruyne, Mohamed Salah, Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, Pulisic, Aubameyang. There are so many options there that could do it. So do let us know what you all think. We'll be coming out with more FPL videos once the fixtures are out, and we'll keep you all
Yeah.
updated as well as what is happening with the transfers. But until then, like the video and subscribe to the channel, and see you all soon.